Doctor Sleep, the sequel to The Shining, but is it an adaptation of the book by Stephen King? Or is it more of the sequel to the Stanley Kubrick? Well, I haven't read the book, so this review is mostly what I know from the movie by Stanley Kubrick, okay? So Doctor Sleep was directed by Mike Flanagan and stars Ewan McGregor and also Rebecca Ferguson. And then also other characters as well. So, and this tells the story of Danny here, the kid from The Shining, now played by Ewan McGregor, helping this young girl who also has the shine, but a very powerful shine, trying to stop some bad people who has the shine. So the bad people, the villains, are using the shine to kill people that has the shine. Does that make sense? Yeah, that makes sense. And so it's basically like that. The main villain is played by Rebecca Ferguson, and I really think that the main villain here is very interesting with the execution. Not the best villain in cinema history, but when I watched it, it was an interesting take on how he managed to do with the villain, and it kind of actually surprised me. And for a sequel to The Shining, I'd say it's a worthy sequel. Well, it's not as good as The Shining, but I still had tons of fun watching it. It was entertaining and it was suspenseful. But when I was watching this, it took a while to know what was going on, and when I was watching this, it had this eeriness, it had this creepy feeling. I always had this creepy feeling all throughout this movie, this 2.5 hour long movie, and overall it never felt boring. And the story, and when the movie was trying to be its own thing, which thankfully it does, instead of fishing you in with, hey, remember The Shining? You know, the Kubrick one? Remember the Overlook Hotel? Instead of going full on that, I really liked how they more went on their own direction. Instead, went on its own direction instead of trying to bait into nostalgia. Although the Overlook does appear in this movie, as shown in the trailers, it definitely did serve a part in this movie, but it was more natural rather than being forced, so it doesn't really affect me too much. But then there are some scenes. There is this one particular sequence that was, I'm going to be honest, when I watched this movie, I thought I knew what was going on, but then when I explained it, I know what happened. But when I watched it, it's like I don't know what's happening. But then after watching it, I know exactly what happened, and mainly because I'd say it was well shot and it was so suspenseful. Well, it really is a suspenseful movie, and it really had this creepy feeling inside throughout this movie. And I really loved that this movie, how the story explores more about the shining abilities thing. Unlike in the Stanley Kubrick movie, they did explore the shine there, but this really feels like a natural sequel to Stanley Kubrick's Shining, in my opinion. But then, in one point of the movie, it starts becoming somewhat inconsistent. I would have expected it to go this way, but yet it executed in this way. That doesn't mean it's a bad sequence. It means it suddenly became somewhat inconsistent, and during that moment, and I would have appreciated if it were 100% consistent, but then I didn't mind that. This movie is also 2.5 hours long. After watching this, it really didn't feel too long, although some scenes I do feel like do drag just a little bit, not really that minor, but overall, it's not as good as The Shining, but it's still a worthy sequel in my opinion. So I give this movie an 8 out of 10, and my recommendation level of a 3 out of 4 would kind of recommend it. This movie is more of a slow build-up type of horror movie instead of the instead of your typical horror movie, which I feel like some people will be thrown off. But for me personally, I really loved it, and I really loved the slow build, and I especially loved some of the beginning scenes, which is actually kind of a great scene. Hmm. So, have you watched Doctor Sleep? Did you like it? Did you dislike it? Please leave a comment down below. If you like this review, you may hit the like button, and if you want to subscribe, hit the subscribe button to see more movie reviews. And it says my channel filming gaming and movies and gaming. I'm going to do gaming sometime soon, hopefully. So goodbye.